Om Jesus, Om Jesus, Om Jesus, Om. Om Buddha, Om Buddha, Om Buddha, Om.
Om Jesus, Om Jesus, Om Jesus, Om. Om Buddha, Om Buddha, Om Buddha, Om.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara. Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vadamulam Guru Murti, Pujamulam Guru Param. Mantramulam Guru Vakyam, Mokshamulam Guru Kripa. Om Sahana Bhavatu,
Sano Bhunaktu, Saviryam Karavamai, Tejasvina
that quality, not so much a qualification, that a master looks for in an eligible disciple, is known as dispassion. It's not something which is very easy to understand intellectually, because it's not something which is intellectual, psychological. In fact, it is not even logical, but questions a certain logic to which we blindly subject ourselves. Dispassion is translated into vairagya or renunciation or sannyasa. But vairagya is not easy to verbalize. We are taking a stand somewhere and then questioning, what does a person who has vairagya do? What does a person who is cultivating dispassion do? He does exactly what you are doing. Then you are disappointed if you see a very holy man also eating and drinking and sleeping just like me. What do you want me to do? What do you want him to do? Eat through the nose? Drink through the ear? We are after some sort of supernatural phenomenon. Vairagya does not mean, or dispassion does not mean, such eccentric behavior. When you get into some sort of a tight corner like that, I recommend first a warm bath if it is cold, and a nice cup of coffee, and or a good sleep. Coffee disturbs your sleep. First have sleep and then you have a cup of coffee. After having done all that, then pick up the nearest Sanskrit English dictionary and study this word vairagya and see how many different meanings are possible. Study the word sannyasa, which is said to imply renunciation or becoming a swami. and see for yourself how many different interpretations are possible. One such is related to this dispassion by raga. Raga means an attraction, raga means infatuation, raga means enjoyment, raga means just coloring. Now, perhaps a new understanding arises when you look at the word as meaning the absence of mental coloring. If you think of it in terms of attraction or enjoyment, it is natural for the logically trained mind, the mind trained in logic, to blame the outside object for the attraction. If somebody is attractive, what's wrong with my looking at her? She is attractive. Not because I'm a funny, stupid man, but she is attractive. And immediately she is very highly pleased. You say, you are terribly attractive and therefore I feel attracted. The whole deal seems to be made easy. When you translate it as an enjoyment, your brain works out all sorts of rationalization to suggest that enjoyment is inherent in life, natural to life, and even a baby enjoys and all the rest of it. The master does not question the validity or otherwise of such arguments. He asks a very different question. What is it in you that responds to this attraction? The face is attractive, no doubt. The chocolate is sweet, no doubt about that. But what is it in you that responds to this? Having asked that question, he goes one step further and says that is the thing that defined that as an object of enjoyment in the first place. Ramana Maharshi, I believe, had a very simple way of dealing with such problems. Leave alone attracting you or enslaving you or ensnaring you. No object, nothing in the world jumps on your shoulders and says, I am chocolate. Nothing, no, nothing does that. No object or nothing in the world jumps into your mouth and says, look, I am sweet. Can you taste me? And so it's absolutely clear that the object in itself is not sweet or bitter or sour or pungent. Something in you has decided that this is sweet and this is not sweet. Something in you decides that a certain thing is desirable and then desires it. It's a circular argument. Why do you desire it? Because it is desirable. How did it become desirable? Because I desired it. It's a circular, meaningless, totally meaningless argument. There is something in you which determined that a certain object has a certain quality to please you. Ranjana, Raga. And as long as that coloring in the mind is not dealt with, this attraction will not go, dispassion will not arise. No amount of I will do this, I will not do this, I will enjoy this, I will practice restraint and all that, nothing will work. What the master is looking for is dispassion, as my Guru Swami Shivananda used to say, born of understanding, viveka, wisdom, born of insight. We are caught again. Insight cannot manifest it unless there is dispassion. And dispassion is not going to be gained unless there is insight. Back to square one. Luckily that square one is still standing for you and me, waiting for you and me. We are merely given a glimpse of the truth, glimpse of the path, glimpse of the qualifications that are found in an eligible student, in an eligible disciple. These are not qualities which can be acquired, like love. You cannot acquire love. Either you love me or you don't love me. It's not so important, yes? So forget it. Either you love a person or you don't love a person. You cannot force yourself, you cannot make yourself love the other person. If it is not there, go your way. You may find that your heart responds to somebody else. No problem. In the same way, dispassion cannot be developed. You do what you like. You can sit there in front of that bar of chocolate and say, no, I want you. You are not sweet, you are bitter. And the moment someone mentions the word chocolate, your mouth is full of water. Saliva. And if you don't satisfy this desire for chocolate during the day, all your dreams will be of chocolate. And you sit for your morning meditation, God is a huge big chocolate. That shows that many of you have some sort of gods like this. Sure. We have all got that. It's impossible to get rid of it. Till the intelligence is awakened, and that awakened intelligence known as buddhi sees that this is merely a coloring. This thing became an object of enjoyment because sometime or the other I decided that I derive pleasure from it. And the same thing can be looked at from another point of view, which is pointed out by this young man, the little hero in our story, Nachiketa. When the teacher Yama offered him long life, great wealth, chariots, palaces, gardens, property, nymphs, this little boy had the wisdom to look at all these from another point of view. Sure, there is a lot of pleasure in all these, in eating, in sex, in all that, eating, drinking. There's a lot of pleasure in all that. Quite true. That is one point of view. The other point of view is that the more I eat, the closer to the grave I go. The more I enjoy and indulge in all these things known as sensual pleasures, the faster I move towards the grave. They are wearing out my own energy. This is the reading of that little boy. You can look at the same thing both ways. One is to see chocolate is good, it tastes good, it's full of energy, and as young people we need energy. Good. That's one way of looking at it. The other way is to see that every piece of chocolate that is chewed digs a hole in the tooth. Both these attitudes are possible. Both these points of view are possible. One point of view attracts you to the chocolate. The other point of view repels you from the chocolate. Same thing. Till, by God's grace, both these subside because you have your eyes turned inwards. And you become aware of the source of this attraction or repulsion, which is the mental coloring. I gave you half a quotation the other day. The other half is this: Kaschid dhiraha pratyagaatmanamaikshate avritta chakshuhu amrutatvam icchan. Sure, the mind, when it starts to function, thinks of other things, not itself, its own source. The eyes, when they open, they see their own objects. The ears hear external sound. That's it. The master does not blame anybody for it, and he merely says that that is how it is. If you have a reliable translation of the Katha Upanishad and look up this mantra, you might discover that the translator suggests that the creator is to be blamed for all this. Call it God. God made it that way, that the eyes can only see outward and the ears can only hear external noise and sound, and the mind can only think of other things. Again, the text can be translated differently. Paranchikanim vyatrinat swayambhu. Swayambhu, all these things happened this way, that's all. Don't blame any God or nature, nothing. What do you mean they happened that way? Look, look, look. Don't blame any God. Don't blame any creator, nothing. Open your eyes and see what you see, only others. That's it. That's enough. It is not because you want it so. It is not because God wanted it to be so. It is not because of anything. It is so. That's your starting point. You become aware of the problem, or at the moment you become aware of it, which is, and the problem is that the mind can only think of other things, not its own source. As a matter of fact, Vasishtha has a very beautiful teaching. There is awareness. Awareness is fundamental. Awareness is fundamental to everything. You are aware, and therefore the world is. In order to contradict that statement, you must talk to me in a state of total unawareness and still tell me, Swami, yeah, I am completely unaware and still there is a world. Which is absurd. So you can't beat that argument. It's a very convenient argument, whether it is true or false, and they're unbeatable. And Vasishtha tells us that when the awareness wants to become aware of itself, what happens? What happens? I don't know. But what happens to you the first thing in the morning, every day, when you become aware of yourself, or awareness arises, awareness becomes aware of itself. I am. The moment is I am thought arises, the world has arisen too. You become immediately aware of the body, of the bed, of the surrounding, of the house, of the other people. In other words, it looks as if the whole problem can be simplified by saying awareness becoming aware of itself is the world, which includes the I, the you, the he, the she, and the rest of it. Without the ego, the world does not exist. The world, the ego, and their relationship, all these three arise simultaneously. And this can be experienced by each one of you if you care to devote some time, which means anything from 3 minutes to 6 hours, as soon as you wake up in the morning. We'll come back to that later. This is a fact. That is, that when you become aware of yourself, the world arises. Who made it that way? Is it natural, unnatural? Is it inevitable, or can it be changed? All these questions are irrelevant, because as long as this externalization of consciousness remains, our problems continue to bug us. Terrible. Life becomes full of problems, because when I become aware of you, it seems to be inevitable that I should like some of you and I should not like some of you. Why is it so? It is so. It is not possible for all of us to like all of us unless you are enlightened person. That's a different story. I am talking about us now. It is not possible for each one of us to like every one of us. As soon as you become aware of an object, and the object means that you are the subject, a relationship arises. I like this, I don't like this. And what I like becomes an object of pleasure, enjoyment. What I dislike becomes an object of intense displeasure, pain. I'm sure you all experience this in your own domestic relationships, leave alone anything else. Husband-wife relationship, father-son, parent-children relationship. You don't like your children, but then the neighbor comes raving about it, about your children, how good they are, how marvelous they are. And then you rationalize saying, this boy, he is good when he goes out and he comes home with all his frustrations, and etc. It's not so. It is not so. That is how it is. As soon as you become aware of that as an object, there are only two possibilities, really. Either you like that object or you dislike the object. When you like the object, all that that object does or is good. When you learn to love somebody, you are prepared to tolerate anything that somebody does. Yeah? I'm sure you have experienced this. Especially if you are married with families. Anything that person does, you are prepared to not tolerate, enjoy almost. The more the mischief, the better. And the person you dislike doesn't seem to have one good quality. All that he does is hopeless. All that he is hopeless. Terrible, 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 terrible. And all the people who say something good of him are mad. Is that right? This is an impossible situation. You cannot manipulate any of those things. You cannot manipulate the world outside. And you cannot even manipulate yourself. Learn to like the other person, see God in the other person. How do I see God in the other person? The person whom I hate. Love your enemy. If you are my enemy, how can I love you? If the mind says you are my enemy, how can I love you? That the teaching means something entirely different. Remove the idea of enmity from your heart. That is what it means. Not love your enemy. So, we must go right down to that center of our being where the world arises, including me, including you, and where in that world you and the object of your awareness form a relationship. In order to do this, kaschid dhiraha pratyagaatmanamaikshati avrta chakshuhu amrtatvam icchan. A rare hero. This mantra was one of the favorites of my Guru, Swami Shivananda. A rare hero is able to turn his gaze within, not to look at a thing called the self, a thing called the ego, a thing called the mind, but to look at the source of this problem. The problem being, why am I attracted to some and why am I repelled by some? What is this inner attitude, inner psychological coloring, psychological bias, prejudice that makes me love some and not love others? That's the problem. What makes me love some and hate others, not love others? When you begin to observe, there's a chair there. When you begin to observe this, you suddenly realize the awareness flowing towards you. What it means, I don't think, cannot be put into words. When you actually do this, you will realize it. The awareness seems to flow towards you. Kaschid dhiraha pratyagaatmanamaikshati avrta chakshuhu amrtatvam icchan. He is on the road to the realization of the immortal. Says this god of death called Yama. What is this awareness and how does one become aware of this awareness? I understand. Oh, wait a moment. It is not an intellectual game. Na virato duscharitat, na shanto na samahitah. Na virato duscharitat. You can immediately spot the person who is even doing this, not who has perfected himself in this, who is even engaged in doing this exercise, by the fact that he is not interested in evil action, in wicked action. Why is it so? Because the actions that are considered immoral or wicked, evil, not by society or law, by the great sages and seers and yogis, those actions which are considered immoral or unworthy, evil, they are the results of the mental coloring. It is unexamined mental coloring, it is unexamined prejudice, it is unexamined ignorance that prompts you to be wicked. This is a very important truth to remember. We are not concerned here with the absolutes. Whether a human being is innately by birth good or by birth evil, we are not interested in that. We are looking at the whole problem from a different point of view. As long as this self-ignorance is not examined directly, as long as the prejudices that our mind is full of are not directly looked at, so long the mind will tend towards evil, wickedness. Therefore, the moment you begin to observe the roots of these prejudices, that very moment evil drops away. You are not interested. You are not sprouting wings and you are not going to fly out of this hall. But evil has dropped away, begun to drop away. You may still get angry, but you will not get mad. You may still be tempted, but you won't be hopping mad. You will still enjoy life, sure, but you won't jump out of the window for that. You may still enjoy a good cup of coffee or a bar of chocolate, but you won't take a plane to go to San Jerome. Sorry. As you go along, if you find a bar of chocolate, enjoy it. Or if you have a nice cup of coffee, drink it. But you won't go from here to Constantia saying that there is a restaurant there which makes good coffee. That's a mad, driving craving would be absent. Would drop away. It's not as though you are struggling to get rid of it. No, there is no struggle at all. When is there struggle? When your heart is ruled by these passions and somehow there is an intellectual understanding that these passions are harmful, spiritually harmful, and you want to kick them out and you want to tuck them in, pull them up. Then there is a battle, an inner conflict. When the sources of these prejudices, the sources of these judgments and evaluations are directly observed, evil propensities drop away of their own accord, without any struggle whatsoever. almost effortless. The only effort involved in this is the self-observation. Avritta chakshuh amritattamichan, and lest you should think that all this is mere intellectual game, the master wants nabirato duscharita. Unless you find a person is getting less and less wicked, na shanto, unless he is moving towards peace, he is getting closer to peace, inner peace. For the same reason, when you begin to observe yourself, the sources of these cravings, prejudices, the mind becomes still in a very different way. It is not the stillness of a vacuum, it is not the stillness of a grave, but it is a tremendous stillness. Stillness which is full of awareness, stillness which is full of dynamism, and yet still. Again, these are all beyond verbalization and therefore description. If that peace is not found in that person, he has not got wisdom and he is far from the inner light, however much he may pretend to be intellectually so. Na samahita, not self-controlled. So, self-control, peace of mind, and the absence of wickedness, these are the signs of inner awakening, not an intellectual comprehension of all these truths. To emphasize this still more, the master uses a remarkable verse. Nayamatma pravachanena labhyo namedayana bahuna sutena. This is a repetition of what I have said already. This inner light, self-knowledge, is not attained by listening to talks, by reading more books. Then why don't you say something positive? It's not got by learning, by listening to talks, and you cannot cultivate these qualities, and without these qualities you cannot get inner light. Well, can't you say something more sensible? Now, yeah, sure. Yamai vesham vrunte tena labhyah hasesha atma vivrunte tanogum swam. Fantastically positive statement, which makes it far worse. The self reveals itself to whom it wills. Positively you want to know. There is not one no there in that whole statement. The self reveals itself, positive. Yeah? To whom it wills. Positive. But we are still as far away from a clear understanding of the picture as we were in the beginning. How does one make the self desire to reveal itself to me? That's the question. No answer. Jamai vesham vrunte nalabhyah. Whomever the self wants to reveal itself to, he gets it. Self? What do you mean by that? That which is in me already. Look at this. Paradox. Paradox means something that cannot be taught. So please don't think someone is sitting here and teaching you. The text does not say God reveals himself with whom he is pleased. That's a different story. Then immediately you push God outside, and then, well, we all woo him in our own ways. But here it is the word used is self. Self means you. That which is the very center of each one of us. And what does it mean to say that the self reveals itself to whom it wills? Master says, if you don't understand, shut up. Someone said, you mean we should surrender ourselves? Means what? Who are you to surrender what? This puzzle is not resolved at all in any scripture anywhere. For a very simple reason that there is one point beyond which intellectual understanding cannot possibly reach. Why so? For a very simple reason that the mind is dualistic. It works on the basis of logic, and it must have a thesis and antithesis. Either or, and the truth is neither nor. Either or means excluding something. Truth does not exclude anything, cannot exclude anything. God cannot exclude anything. Use the word God, there's no harm. God cannot exclude anything. The self is the self of each one. And how can we say either or, I go to heaven and somebody else goes to hell? Anything that works on the basis of this exclusion is a mental concept. It is not truth. Okay, I abandon all that. Then, are you there? No. You are still functioning. As long as the mind functions only on the basis of either or. It may lead you right up to somewhere, saying all of us will go to heaven and somebody else will go to hell. Or all non-ignorant, enlightened people will be enlightened, and there are others who are still fools, who will be enlightened later. It's a concession. We are enlightened, and they are not enlightened, but they will be enlightened later. However much you struggle, or the more you struggle, the more you swing between the two opposites, the 2 points of view, either or. Whatever you do, please watch, observe it within yourself. Whatever you do, however unified you are, however much you think you have cosmic consciousness, you exclude something outside of it. We are all members of Cosmic Consciousness Club, CCC, and there are others who are not. I have attained cosmic consciousness. Even in that statement, the I is still sitting on the rim of the cup. enjoying this cosmic consciousness. If you did not exclude yourself, you would not have a dualistic experience. Just as you did not exclude yourself from the experience called sleep, and therefore you were not aware of it. And therefore sleep is not a dualistic experience, deep, dreamless sleep. There is a problem here, very serious problem. How does one overcome this? There is no sense in saying surrender yourself. All the words have been used in order to bring about a little bit of maturity, a little bit of interest in these higher things. And therefore the master says, Uttishtata, Jagrata. These two things you can do. Wake up first. Wake up to the problem. Don't think you can solve the problem, but wake up to the problem. Wake up to the existence of this problem. The problem of the mind, the problem of prejudice, the problem of attachment, the problem of attraction and repulsion, the problem of love and hate, the problem of either or. Become aware of this. Uttishtata. Jagrata. And once you have roused yourself, be very vigilant, very careful. It is possible to wake up. It's not terribly difficult to wake up. I repeat, if you read with the eyes of your heart the morning's newspaper, you will probably become a Swami tomorrow morning, no or later. Uttishtata. So a little bit of stirring, a little bit of inner awakening takes place if you are even slightly observant. But that does not last long. I don't know, we don't know why. This is merely a statement of fact. Suddenly you read something or you confront a real life situation in which death and desolation seems to be the lot of humanity. Oh my God, hereafter I must be alright. It lasts for a little while. Then the old friend takes over. The master cautions, Uttishtata, Jagrata. Wake up and remain alert. Those of you who are meditating in the morning, you might find this even more interesting. It is not very difficult to cultivate the habit of getting up at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. That's easy. You sort of train yourself over a period of 15-20 days or by a month. You can easily wake up. And then you can even wash yourself and have a cup of tea and go and sit down for a meditation. That's also possible. And while sitting for your meditation, it's even possible for you to uplift yourself and elevate the thoughts and all that for a few moments. And then slowly the head starts sinking. Gone. It's extremely difficult to remain alert. To remain truly awake is very difficult. No one knows why, and that's why the Orientals called it Maya, and the Occidentals called it accident or Satan. You don't have to call it anything at all because it comes without calling. When sleep comes to you in meditation without calling, why must you call it in sleep? This is something puzzling again. As you see, we are more full of problems than solutions. Huh? I want to sit and meditate. And why is it that when I start meditating, sleep overpowers me? Whereas either in the morning or the afternoon or evening or midnight, if you go and watch a nice show, you don't want to sleep at all. Why is it so? It is so. Don't ask why. Uttishtata, jagrata. Wake up, and having woken up, remain alert. These two you can do and you must do. Nobody else is going to do it for you. Prapya varan nibodhati. Only that much you can do. You can turn the gaze within yourself, become aware of the inner problems, the sources of the problems, and as you become aware of the sources of these problems, you will become more and more noble, holy, full of virtue, natural goodness. And you may have a certain understanding of the truth. That's all. You can't go any further. Prapya varan nibodhati. There is one step further which you cannot take for a simple reason that when you take a step, you are going to put that step only where you can see. You can only tread a path. This is not a path. When a bird flies, even if you can walk in space like some of those astronauts did, even if you have some sort of an apparatus which enables you to walk on space, you cannot follow the flight of the eagle exactly. You cannot tread the same path as the eagle did. Why not? You can't see it. It's not a path. You and I are capable of walking a path. That is why we follow religious cults and traditions. That is easy. Traditions are really traditions. Some sort of trade, some sort of business. All traditions are some sort of business. And we congregate together, club ourselves together, and use this club to beat other people up. That's why the club has two meanings. One is, this is one club, and we all join this club, and having joined this club, we pick up this club and hit other people. All that we can do. But the truth or God is realized, the self is realized, not by pursuing a path, but by finding it. And hence the master cautions, Shurasya dhara nishita duratya durgam patastat kavayo vadanti. At that point you have to seek a master who will take your foot and place it where it has to be, because you cannot see the path from there on. It is not a path. It is like the razor's edge. Not because it is sharp and it will cut your foot, but because it is so sharp that you can't see it. the center of your own being is not a football on which you can precariously stand, but the center of your being is a point, which means it has no dimensions whatsoever. How can you take a stand on that which has no dimension whatsoever? How will you find that which has no dimension whatsoever? What does the master do? The master merely knocks at every concept that you bring up. That's all the master does. Correct? When your logical mind produces this, he says, no, not this. When your logical mind produces that, he says, not that, it. You turn that way, he slaps you there. You turn around, go, come this way, he slaps you here. Churasya dhara nishida duratya durgam padastat kapayo vadanti. Having said all this, the master in the Kathopanishad goes on to give something like a positive hint. Something like a positive hint. He says, study the mind. You are studying the mind. Who is it that is studying the mind? Is the mind studying itself? In which case, it is water being diluted with water. Can you do that? You dilute milk with water. That's sensible. But supposing you decide that water is too thick, the water that comes out of the tap, can you dilute it with adding more water to it? So, thinking about thought is waste of time. Thinking that you can understand thought by thinking about it is waste of time. No good? So, and of course the master has dismissed other approaches to this problem also by saying that by using what is transient, you cannot reach what is eternal. Thought is transient. All the other yoga practices that we indulge in are all transient. You stand on your head, not forever. All these things are transient. Charity, austerity, going to the temple and worship and all the rest of it, they are all transient phenomena. By these you cannot attain what is not transient. Even thought cannot really unravel what is not transient, what is eternal. Because thought itself is limited. It arises, it collapses, goes. But, says the master, look carefully. If you realize this impossible situation, the mind becomes still. When the mind is still, something else stirs. It wakes up. And that is called buddhi. Please don't let us go away confident that we have understood what this means. It's like the story of that man with the tin box. It has to be opened only when there is fire, not before that. So, this can be understood only when you have taken those steps. Turn the gaze to look within and to come face to face with the mind and its tricks. Come to the end of your own tether and decided it's not possible to go any further. I don't know what the mind is. With what shall I understand this mind? With the mind, it's useless. When you come to that point, suddenly you find something waking up. And that is called buddhi. That buddhi or intelligence, awakened intelligence, is not of the mind. But even that is not the ultimate that you are looking for. Because even that is able to distinguish one from the other. One state of mind from the other. An intelligent state of mind from the stupid state of mind. And waking state of mind to dream state of mind or sleep state of mind. Manasastu para buddhe. Buddher atma mahan para. Even beyond that is the self, which is pure intelligence. Pure intelligence, pure awareness. Awareness in which the object does not arise and therefore the subject does not arise. Is there such a thing? How do I get it? In that whole section, the master uses a very beautiful expression. Etad vaitat. Do this, etad vaitat. You will see that. That is it. That is it. That is it. But you cannot get it intellectually, but you can reach it by proceeding in this direction, in the direction indicated by the master. One beautiful exercise the master gives, which is not impossible for us. Swapnantam jagaritantam va. Try to remain awake and observe what happens when sleep comes to an end. The very moment sleep comes to an end. Or jagaritantam. Observe the very moment your wakefulness comes to an end. That is the junction, the meeting points. The junction of waking and sleep. Before you fall asleep and after, while you are coming out of sleep. That is the place of death. That is the abode of death. And that is the abode of creation. That is where creation takes place. That is where true death takes place. It's something extraordinarily beautiful that we die every day and the new creation arises every morning. If we learn to meditate at these 2 points, while you fall asleep, remain inwardly aware. How does this sleep enter me? You may find this not so easy, not so simple. Though it looks so simple to hear a description of it, in practice you will find that this is extremely slippery and tricky. And if you have a sense of humor, and if you are not terribly serious about the practice, you may very soon learn to enjoy how weak we are, how weak our resolve is. You sit down here and you say, right, I'm going to figure out tonight how sleep overpowers me. Okay, you are even intelligent enough, clever enough, resolute enough not to close your eyes. But eyes open. Unbeknown to you, a thought occurs to you. What does it matter whether the eyes remain closed or open? It's all same. I have gone beyond all that. Something happens to you. And when this thought arises, you close your eyes. It's uncomfortable. I'm not able to meditate properly because the eyes are burning. Uncomfortable. I'm wide awake, nothing will happen to me. Let me close my eyes for just a moment. That moment lasts a whole night. What happened? How did I sleep? From waking to sleep, I must have passed through some kind of a threshold. What is that? That is pure awareness. That is pure awareness. That awareness continues throughout the day because it does not come to an end. It is that awareness that enters sleep and remains aware while the body is at rest and the mind seems to be at rest. The brain is at rest in any case. That awareness does not cease to be. It goes on. And it wakes up, creating all this world, playing in this world, and then goes into a dream state or sleep state again. That is unending. In that, there is no division between one aspect of my personality and another aspect of my personality. In that, there is no division between I and you and he and it, the world. In that, there is no division as subject and object. And therefore, there is no attraction, there is no repulsion, there is no love, there is no hate. That is love of a different type. Mrityosya mrityumapneti mrityosya mrityumapnoti yaihanane vapashyati. Only as long as you are aware, or as this awareness is busy creating and maintaining this diversity, that there is death, says the Lord of Death. Once you have crossed this threshold, there is no more death. There is oneness, and in that oneness there is self-knowledge.